Greetings and welcome back to Doctor Who Revisited, where I go through every single episode of Doctor Who from 1963 all the way to 2025 and review them. And now we are on to Castrovalva, the season opener of season 19, and also the first episode to feature Peter Davison as the Doctor, the fifth Doctor to be specific. It has been a while since I have reviewed an episode of Doctor Who that did not feature Tom Baker, but you know what? It had to happen eventually. Now, this is, of course, the trilogy closer of the Master's Return trilogy, which personally I think is a much better trilogy of episodes than the East Space trilogy. Obviously, just starting with the Keeper of Traken, and continuing on with Logopolis, and now ending with Castrovalva, which is weird because the third part of this trilogy of episodes is in a completely different season to the other two, which is interesting. But either way, I love this trilogy. This is I wouldn't necessarily say a perfect trilogy, but as about close to perfection as you can with these three episodes. I just love all three of them. And Castrovalva, of course, is no different. Now, if I had to rank them, I would probably say that Castrovalva is my second favorite. Obviously, Keeper of Traken is my number one, and Logopolis is my number three. But it is a very, very close, tight race with, of course, a slight edge to Keeper of Traken, and just, Logopolis and Castrovalva just, battle it out for second spot. But either way, what an episode. I love this episode. A great debut for Peter Davison as the Doctor, which somehow manages to balance a post-regeneration story with a regular Doctor Who story. And this is probably the first time we've ever seen the Doctor's regeneration go bad. And I mean very bad. Now, post-regeneration stories have always kind of been slightly different to the regular Doctor Who episodes. I mean, obviously, you have to introduce a new Doctor, a new actor into the role. So naturally, there's going to be some growing pains. But this is the first regeneration story that actually heavily focuses on the deep trauma that regeneration does to a person, to a Time Lord. I mean, just think about it. Your whole body changes. Your entire personality, like everything you were, dies. It's essentially like dying and coming back to life in a span of a few seconds. What does that do to a person's psyche? So yeah, I think it's a very fascinating thing to explore with this episode. And obviously they then later explain it that because of everything was going on in Logopolis with, the CVE end of the universe, and he was hanging by a thread over a telescope that was emitting radio waves into the center of the universe and whatnot. So yeah, expect some issues to happen, and it really did affect him badly. I mean, when you really do think about the Fourth Doctor's regeneration, I mean, it's understandable that he's going through what he's going. I mean, there's literally a different version of the Doctor running around from a failed timeline where his regeneration didn't work, and he's sort of merging with the Fourth Doctor in order to trigger a regeneration, which is why I think it's very important that they had the cold opening of doing a sort of a redone of the ending of Logopolis, which clearly certain moments from that scene were reshoots. I don't think any of the Tom Baker stuff was reshot, but certainly some of the lines used by the companions was absolutely a reshoot, because I mean, they're clearly not 100% identical to what they said in Logopolis.
The Watcher.
He was the Doctor all the time.
The Watcher.
So he was the Doctor all the time.
So, yeah, I think it was super important and crucial to put that scene in the beginning of the episode, even before the opening title sequence, which is rare for classic Doctor Who. Obviously, modern Doctor Who does that all the time, but it's rare for classic Doctor Who to put any kind of scene before the opening credits, which is very interesting. And like I said, that's what makes this episode so unique in its approach to regeneration. This is kind of where I think the link between Logopolis and Castrovalva kind of falls apart, because if you look at the very end of Logopolis, after the Doctor falls off the telescope thing, you see Adric, Nyssa, and Tegan running towards him, and like a second and a half behind them are a group of security guards chasing them. Then the three just stand over the Doctor's body for a good chunk of time, waiting for him to regenerate. And then when Castrovalva starts, they're already running back to the TARDIS with the Doctor, and somehow the security guards still haven't caught up to them. What's up with that? Like, are these the most incompetent security guards of all time? Probably, because, I mean, look what happens a second later. They finally got the three companions. They have them with their hands on the ambulance thing while they're doing a body search. They let Adric distract them as Nyssa and Tegan climb into the ambulance and hijack it. Like, the level of incompetence of these people is like stormtrooper level. And I mean, Star Wars stormtrooper, not Nazi stormtroopers. Anyways, here's another kind of an issue with the episode. Is like, the Master's TARDIS just shows up, electrocutes all the security guards, and clearly it's very visible that he does something to Adric, and yet Nyssa and Tegan don't realize it. And even after he's in the TARDIS, clearly his behavior has changed significantly. I mean, he was already kind of a dick to Tegan, not Nyssa necessarily, but he was very significantly different than the previous episode. But they just, get on with it. They don't really let that affect them too much. And then, of course, is some of my favorite scenes from the episode. Obviously, I'll keep saying this every time this happens. I love it when we get to see more of the TARDIS. And we do get to see a lot of the TARDIS's interior in this episode. All the different corridors and all the different rooms, which, again, kind of begs the question, who was the owner of those rooms? And I think, I kind of have to point this out. The Doctor unravels the Fourth Doctor's scarf, or rather his predecessor's scarf, and then rips apart his jacket and leaves all the rest of his clothes behind. So, like, yeah, as painful as it is to see the iconic scarf getting unraveled, I think it is very symbolic of the new Doctor literally discarding any traces of his former self to make way for his new self, which is how, of course, he accidentally runs into the coat with the hat and, of course, the cricket bat. And again, more elements of that. You get to see the Doctor sort of starts to switch in and out of his previous incarnations all throughout the first two episodes. And there's like a moment where he picks up a flute or a recorder. I'm not 100% sure which is the correct one, but like he gives it a try, and then it's like, yeah, no, not for me. I'm not that kind of Doctor anymore. And he immediately picks up the cricket bat, and that's kind of become part of the Doctor's personality. And you can really do see that a lot throughout the episode. You can really feel this Doctor's whole being slowly being assembled as the episode goes on. And he walks into one of the rooms, which, like, who owned that room in the TARDIS? Like, seriously, who had a room filled with all the cricket stuff? I don't know, unless, of course, the TARDIS could sense the Doctor's receiving a bit of a connection with that cricket bat, and she could feel what the Doctor was manifesting. And remember, TARDISes, are complex time-space beings, so they kind of exist in the past and the future at the same time. Maybe the TARDIS felt that this Doctor would be a great at cricket, so she manifested an entire room for cricket for him to get dressed. And I love that he did actually keep the white shirt with the question marks on the neck thing, whatever you call it, sort of still keeping true to the Doctor-ness of himself, but he's dressed completely in the cricket gear with the pants, the vest, and of course the coat, and that just kind of becomes his thing from now on. And he really is one of those Doctors that kind of picks out an outfit and sticks with it. Because, like, even if you watch Tom Baker, even if you ignore the fact that he completely had a makeover in his final season, you look at some of his previous seasons, and it's like, on some episodes, some of his outfits have variations on them. Still got the big long scarf, but the coat, the boots, and even the hat changes from every once in a while. That does happen to some Doctors some of the time. I mean, we've seen it a lot for the Third Doctor. I mean, do we even need to talk about Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor, the 15th Doctor, who basically has a different outfit in every episode? Not to mention Peter Capaldi, the 12th Doctor, who also similarly has a different outfit in almost every single episode. So yeah, it is nice that the 5th Doctor is one of the few Doctors that actually has a bit of consistency with his outfits. So yeah, I really do like and appreciate that. And then, like, the surprises keep on coming, because we're getting introduced to a new element for Doctor Who, the Zero Room, a place that Time Lords need to go, sort of detached from the rest of the universe, which is essential whenever a regeneration goes wrong, like what we've seen here. Now, the Zero Room has slightly been used here and there at certain places. I mean, the only off the top of my head I can remember the Zero Room being used, other than, of course, the most recent episode, the Reality War. Another use for the Zero Room is in the War Doctor novel, Engines of War, which the Doctor doesn't use it, but a different Time Lord does. I do believe that there are certain instances where the Zero Room has been used outside of just this episode, but very, very rare, which just shows you how rare this type of regeneration gone bad happens in the Doctor Who universe. Now, interestingly, though, there's something that really caught my eye, or rather my ear, a line of dialogue that really spoke to me, is that when they enter the Zero Room, I think it was Tegan that mentioned that it smells like roses. And the Doctor says, "Yeah, I've always noticed that. Not quite sure why." Roses. Okay? The Doctor has a room in the TARDIS that is specifically tied to when regenerations go wrong, and it smells like roses. And at the same time, another Doctor had a companion who was literally called Rose. And guess what happened to the most recent Doctor after he regenerated? I'm just saying. You know, the Doctor says never ignore coincidence unless, of course, you're in a hurry. Again, I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there. That is something that I just said, and it's out there in the ether, and now it's in your head because I said it. Now, all of that being said, I love the concept of the Zero Room. Back to the episode itself. But yeah, I love the concept of the Zero Room. It's a shame we never really got to see it used all that often. But I mean, in the episode itself, it kind of gets deleted. So that when the Doctor had another opportunity to use that room. But yeah, the concept of deleting rooms to give the TARDIS an extra boost when escaping great dangers or slipping from one universe to another is something that has been used before in Logopolis and is going to be used at least one time that I know of in the modern series with, of course, the Doctor's wife in the Matt Smith era. But yeah, it's a cool part of the TARDIS that, I guess that's how a TARDIS can uh, continue to reinvent itself. That's why we always see new rooms popping up whenever the TARDIS decides to do it. Now let's talk a little bit about the namesake of this episode, Castrovalva, which, by the way, I'm still not 100% sure if Castrovalva is the name of the planet or if Castrovalva is the name of the city. For some reason, growing up, I always thought the Castrovalva was the planet. But I guess upon this rewatch, I'm now realizing that it actually means and refers to the city that never was, because it was all just a made up fiction by the Master using computations from Adric's brain, which kind of begs the question: couldn't the Master have made those computations himself? I mean, he is a Time Lord. He's supposed to be way smarter than an Alzarian, and yet that's why he needed Adric to sustain the world. I guess sustaining that whole place puts a huge strain on a person's mind, and the Master didn't want, to strain his mind on this trap that he set for the Doctor, and he couldn't care less what happens to Adric. Even in that brief moment where he offered him to partner up with him, which of course, I never believed for a second that the Master was genuine about that. And I didn't really believe that Adric was serious about joining the Master. But, I suppose that's neither here nor there. But let's talk a little bit about Castrovalva itself. First of all, just looking at the planet, it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. I love it. I wish I could go visit wherever it is they filmed it, because that just looks amazing. And then we actually get to the city itself, and the city looks really nice. I love the set design for Castrovalva. I said this all over the previous season. The production design for the show has seriously stepped up from the early days of the Tom Baker era, and certainly since the 1960s. So yeah, we're very firmly in the 1980s right now. The TV production designs have gone straight up in that regard, and once again, it's another thing I've said about the previous season all over. It continues on with this season. The costumes look amazing. I love the way the different people in the square dress. I love the hunting party and their traditional garb. They all look special. They all look very unique and striking, and very very eye catching. And I love that. I love the design for Shardaval. I apologize. I'm forgetting the name already. And of course the Portreeve. I love the hat with the double rims on the top, and just the whole set design of Castrovalva is amazing, and it must have been really, really fun. I'm assuming it must have been really fun for the actors to keep running around that whole set all day just to end up at the square again and try to get out through a different route and always ending up at the same place. That was a really nice, fun scene. It must have been a nightmare to shoot, but I mean, I hope that at least they enjoyed themselves doing it. Probably was a lot more fun than walking around that forest for a while, which, by the way, I think I should point this out. Nissa's crown, tiara, headdress thing kind of is taken off by one of the trees, which has been unfortunate. But I mean, sad to say, why does she even need it anymore? Because uh, planet's gone, so don't really need that symbol of authority there. But overall, I mean, the deception with the master actually being the Portreeve the whole time, I think was done very well. Obviously, upon second viewing, when you know it's coming, it's kind of obvious. The signs are all there. You can see past the makeup and the false crouchness of the Portreeve's character. And I mean, even if you look at the end credits, specifically of part 3, like, you already know that the Master is played by Anthony Ainley, but if you look at the who's credited as playing the Portreeve, it's actually Neil Toynay. Toynay. I'm not sure how to pronounce that name, but like, it's clearly an anagram of Anthony Ainley. Not a very good one, by the way, because Anthony Ainley has 2 A's in it, and this name only has 1. But still, I did say in one of the previous episodes that we're going to see this a lot. Obviously, with the character of Tremas is an anagram of master, so we're going to see Anthony Ainley's name sprinkled in and out of some of the next few episodes, wherever he features, whenever he's playing a secret character. And that, I believe, is something that Anthony Ainley actually proposed himself. And according to some interviews, he actually really, really enjoyed coming up with new names for himself whenever he portrayed different characters. So I guess as long as the actors are having fun, that's all that matters. Still, again, I said this previously, and I'll say this again. Anthony Ainley, I think he's very one note as a villain, and you can see that a lot in this episode, specifically in that scene where he's so convinced that the Doctor is inside the Zero Cabinet, when it's very clear from all the evidence that he isn't. And like that whole scene at the end where he's like, my web! Yeah, I'm sorry, but Anthony Ainley still doesn't do it for me. Like, on paper, he is every bit the master that Roger Delgado is, but it's not coming through in the performance. And it sucks because, I do still like Anthony Ainley as the master, just, he's not quite on the level of some of the best masters, in my opinion. That's just, personal take on the master, but it is what it is. And speaking of performances, for what it's worth, I do think Matthew Waterhouse actually nailed his portrayal of Adric in this episode. And I know, again, there's some problems with Adric coming up next, but he wasn't in that episode all that much. This episode all that much. But for what it's worth, I think on the acting side of things, he actually did a pretty good job. So you got to commend him for that. But he's still kind of that arrogant prick that we know is going to be by the end of his run. But I think it's this whole trilogy of episodes with the Master coming back was a really good showcase for Adric. And he has had problems in the previous episodes, and they're going to continue in the next one. But at least this trilogy knew how to utilize that character and that actor well enough. But yeah, again, still really enjoy Tegan and Nissa's contribution to the episode. Of course, Janet Fielding and Sarah Sutton also nailing their part in it. But again, for this episode specifically, I'd say the standout is, of course, Matthew Waterhouse. But again, of course, the actual standout overall is the new Doctor, Peter Davison. Peter Davison's not one of my favorite Doctors, but he's still really good, and I really do enjoy seeing him becoming the person he's going to be, becoming the Doctor he should be in this episode. And like I said, it's really nice to see him slowly achieving that while being under the massive strain of a regeneration gone wrong. And even in that scene where he picks out that celery from that bowl thing and starts eating it, and then by the end of the episode, he pulls out a celery and just wears it, and he's going to continue to wear it for the remainder of his run. It's like, it's such a random thing for a person to do, for any TV character, and yet somehow the Doctor just makes it work. And I love that. I don't know what it is. I love the celery stalk on the Doctor's lapel. Like, some people wear a rose, just saying, on their lapel. Some people wear other types of flowers. But the Doctor, this Doctor specifically, he wears a celery. Like, that's a statement. That's a fashion statement if I ever seen one. So yeah, I really did appreciate that. The origin story of the celery. And then I love that there's like not a specific thing that led to him. He just really liked a celery. And so he took one and put it on his coat. And that's that. And also another thing I'll mention is that when he's struggling to remember that Adric exists, and he's struggling to count, like with where that moment where that little girl helps him to count to past 3. There's just something I want you to notice here, is that he's always stuck on 1 and 2, and just saying the first 2 Doctors are the black and white Doctors, and like there was a pretty rough transition from black and white to color. Then that's when she started saying the next thing that comes after 2 is 3, and then she keeps going and she says then there's 3, and then there's 4, and then 5, and then 6, and then 7. And when she reaches number 7, the Doctor tells her to stop. And if you continue that line of logic that I just laid out for you, I mean, yeah, so the first 2 Doctors were the black and white Doctors. Third one onwards was in color. And then by the time we got to the 7th Doctor, that's when the show got canceled. And that was the end of the classic era of the show. And for a lot of people, that was the end of Doctor Who. Again, I'm just saying, the Doctor does say to never ignore a coincidence, and I'm just pointing it out to you.
I love humans. All of us seeing patterns in things that aren't there.
So yeah, it was a very interesting thing that I noticed. Probably means nothing, but does it? Who knows? Who knows? Anyways, yeah, I think that's about enough meat on the bone to be getting on with. I really like this episode, and I just lay down all the things that I love about it so much, and why I love it as much as I do. But yeah, I don't anticipate. I know I've gone off for a very long time now about the last couple of episodes. I don't anticipate this coming back. I don't see myself sitting and talking about the upcoming episodes for about half an hour ish from now on. But we'll just have to wait and see. Anyways, thank you for listening if you have, and I'll see you next time for the rest of the Peter Davison era episodes. And until the next one, everybody, remember, I am the master, and you will obey me. Hello again. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and leave a comment. See you next time.